Lude is dead. I'm Neil Christensen, author of the modern noir thrillers Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. And this is another of my sporadic episodes of I'm Reading House of Leaves, so you don't have to. Today we're covering chapter 21. Friends, we're almost done with this. There are 23 chapters in this book, and we are at chapter 21. What does that mean? It means it's time to crank that what the fuck-o-meter up to 11. The chapter starts not with the narrative of the Navidson family, but with Johnny. And not in a footnote. For the first time in the whole book, as far as I can remember, Johnny's story steps out of the footnotes and takes center stage on the page. October 25th, 1998. Lude's dead. And medias res, anyone? Johnny's been in a bad way for a while now, so this proclamation is worrisome. He's been away for some time. And when he comes home, he's distraught to find out what had been going on while he was gone. By the time Lude made it out of the hospital, he'd gotten very familiar with all those painkillers. By summer, Lude was tumbling straight down into oblivion. Morning shots, and not booze either. Johnny feels some misplaced responsibility for all this. And then the worst question of all, if I'd been there, could I have made a difference? Johnny goes on to describe what happened to Lude, as best as he can piece together from some questionable sources. Around 4 a.m, he was going for a ride. The chemicals sure as hell didn't object, nor did his friends. Amazingly enough, he made it down the hill alive. He was going well over 100 miles per hour when he lost control, the motorcycle skidding across the left lane. Lude flew off the bike when the front wheel caught the curb. The cement uncapped his skull. The question as to whether Johnny's presence would have made a difference is, I believe, answered in every previous interaction with Lude in this entire book. Lude never listened to Johnny. Johnny is a follower, and Lude is the person he follows. Even when Johnny has spoken up in the past, requested Lude not do something, Lude always ignores him. Johnny couldn't have stopped him any more than he could tear himself away from the pages of Zampano's manuscript. Johnny is now well and truly alone. He is cold, leaning into his hot plate for warmth and lighting matches for the little heat that comes off the tiny stick. In a moment that mirrors Navidson crouched in the dark in the void of the house, Johnny says, "I want to burn these pages. Turn every fucking word to ash. I hold the burning staffs 1/4 of an inch from the paper, and yet, one after another, the flames all die in a gray line. No matter how hard I try, I cannot close that fraction of space. As if to say, not only can this book not be destroyed, it also cannot be blamed." Finally, Johnny leaves the hotel. He's deranged at this point, completely removed from the person he was at the beginning of the book. He tells us that if the clerk at the counter had looked up at him while he was leaving, he would have killed him. He is exuding the aura of a madman, a frightening combination of attitude, dress, and smell. He says he's sleeping under park benches, and wherever I walk, people turn from me. Later, he encounters the inevitable. The Gdansk man finds him, apparently unfulfilled by his beatdown of Lude. He wants to finish the job with Johnny. He assaults Johnny spontaneously on the street, punching him twice in the face and leaving Johnny a crumpled pile of bloody laundry on the ground. Except that when he wipes his hands on his pants and turns to walk away, Johnny gets a second wind. He stands up and grabs an empty bottle of Jack Daniels, which he tells us he hadn't even noticed until that very moment. Then, my fingers locked around the glass neck, and even as I sprang forward, I had already begun to swing. And I was swinging hard, very hard, though, fortunately, the arc was off, the glass only glancing off the side of his head. I let my knuckles do the rest, all of them eventually splitting open on the ridges of his face, until he slumped back in shock. Nothing close to pity moved inside me. Then, suddenly, I understood Kyrie was running towards me. I should have spared her. Instead, I let her read in my eyes everything I was about to do to her. What follows here is too graphic for me to describe. The point of it all, I think, is to show us what this manuscript has turned Johnny into. It's the opposite of a redemption arc. Johnny has gone from a shy and passive person to a complete monster. But, like most monsters, he isn't able to see it in the moment, or even remember it. What happened here? My memory is in flakes. I've lost sense of what's real and what's not, what I've made up and what has made me. He doesn't even remember events that he's been writing down for the book. The journal, too. I thought I'd only written a few entries, but now I can see, I can feel it's nearly full, but I don't recall any of it. In his panic, he begins rereading the journal entries. He's reading about the trip to find the house on Ash Tree Lane. No one here has heard of Zampano. No one here has heard of the Navidsons. I found no Ash Tree Lane. Months of travel, and I still found no relief. He sees evidence of his own hallucinations in his writings, describing people who talk to him but aren't there. At some point, he comes to the conclusion that none of this has ever been about the house, or the Navidsons, or Zampano. All along, it's been about his mother and her descent into madness, the path that he's following now, like mother, like son. With this revelation, he decides to stop looking for the house from the book and go back to the place that actually matters. He heads out to find the hospital his mother died in. Much to my surprise, it was dead. Closed in April, over 5 years ago. He breaks into the building and begins looking for his mother's room. It took me another hour to locate her room, the place where she finally died. I sat down and waited for her to find me. She never did. I waited all night in the very room it happened, waiting for her frail form to glide free of beams of glass and moonlight. Come morning, I found the day as I have found every other day, without relief or explanation. Then he visits the house that he grew up in, but finds it's been torn down and replaced with a lumberyard. Then we have a time jump. Johnny says he's in Seattle, staying with an old friend. He and his wife are doctors, and they're concerned with Johnny and his physical and mental state. He stays with them a couple weeks as they rehabilitate him, treating his wounds, feeding him healthy food, and having him see a therapist. After several weeks with his friends, Johnny tells us that he's on his way back to L.A. to start a new life. Once back in L.A., he tells us all of that was a lie. He doesn't have old friends, especially doctors. No one is going to take care of him. He's got a gas station burrito, his car, and a trunk full of guns. This brings us back, full circle, to the entry, Lude is dead. Moving forward, Johnny tells a long and convoluted story about riding freight rail cars to Flagstaff, Arizona, where he wanders into a bar and sees a local band that plays a song called I Live at the End of a 5.5-minute Hallway. Johnny is shocked, as he has never been able to find anyone who's heard of Zampano, Will or Karen Navidson, or the house on Ash Tree Lane. After the show, he confronts the band, asking about the song. They tell him that it's inspired by the stories of the house in this book they read. Handing over a copy of the book to him, Johnny looks down at the cover. House of Leaves by Zampano, with introduction and notes by Johnny Truant. Johnny is shocked and confused. He spends the rest of the evening talking with the band about the story, their theories, and speculation on the mysterious author, Johnny Truant. Johnny never tells him that it's him. Finally, he gives them their book back and goes back to the train yard to hitch another ride back home. His hallucinations continue to worsen. He imagines a mob of angry people and police coming to kick him out of his hotel room. Even after he realizes that it's not real, he still leaves, climbing out the window and down the fire escape. Then we're back at the scene of Johnny murdering the Gdansk man. Kyrie takes off in the Gdansk man's car, and Johnny stumbles away from the scene, covered in blood. He wanders west until he ends up at the ocean. He sits in the sand, watching the sunset. He remembers his mother, the day she was taken away to the institution, him crying for her to stay, his father pulling him off of her. He lights the manuscript on fire, warming his face and hands on the burning book. Then he recounts a story he says his doctor friend told him while he was in Seattle, but of course, he's also already told us that that never happened. The story is of a woman who had a baby with a medical condition so bad that it could not survive. It's a sad story and somewhat shocking, but as of now, it's a complete non sequitur to our narrative. It doesn't seem to relate to anything that's going on. And that's where the chapter ends. This was, in my opinion, the most effective chapter in the whole book. And also, the most fucked up chapter. Even without the formatting disruptions and miles-deep footnotes, this chapter puts the reader in Johnny's shoes. We feel his confusion, disorientation, and creeping madness. It is unsettling and disturbing. It begs the question of whether all the experimental features of this book were actually necessary. The author is fully capable of building fear and tension through a traditional narrative structure. I'm not saying that the book should have been constructed differently than it was. I am not in the business of telling an artist how to do their art. I'm just noticing that the most unnerving chapter in the book, for me, is also the most normal chapter. I think it's time to wrap this up, folks. 2 more chapters to go. If you want to support the show, if you want to support more content like this, the very best thing you can do is buy my books, Dark White and Malcolm Karma Cold Turkey. 2 modern noir thrillers with anti-hero protagonists and corrupt systems that'll keep you on the edge of your seats. You can, of course, also like and subscribe and comment to the video. That certainly helps on the YouTube side. Anyway, we'll be back at some point with chapter 22 of I'm Reading House of Leaves, so you don't have to.